Welcome everyone to another edition of Play It Through, and on this edition it's Mega Man 2 for the Game Boy, brought to us by Capcom. The second of the portable Mega Man games has Mega Man once again trying to defeat Dr. Wily as he tries to take over the world, this time by stealing an experimental time skimmer from the Kronos Institute, in which he uses it to travel into the future and actually brings back a friendly robot named Quint and uses him against Mega Man. Just like the first portable game, this one features multiple different robot masters from past Mega Man titles, this time featuring the rest of the ones that we didn't see from Mega Man 2, as well as featuring 4 robots from Mega Man 3. So here we go with Mega Man 2 for the Game Boy. You start off by having a select screen featuring 4 robot masters, all of which are from Mega Man 2. These are the 4 robot masters from 2 that we didn't see as end bosses at the end of Mega Man 1 for Game Boy. And we're going to start off with Metal Man. The stage designs for each of the robot masters is pretty much just like it was in Mega Man 2 or 3 for the original Nintendo. It uses many of the same elements, while some things do get changed up a little bit. In the gameplay department though, you actually do have the slide ability, which is something that we didn't see in Mega Man until Mega Man 3. Start off in this area by working your way through and sliding when you can to speed up going over the conveyor belts while waiting for the spikes to drop down and then retract back up into the ceiling. The next section features those drill enemies that we've seen in multiple Mega Mans coming out from the ceiling and bottom. Just try to get through the area as quick as possible because it's really not going to be worth it to just stand there because you're going to end up taking a lot of damage from spikes coming in directly above you or directly below you. Watch out during these sections of the Matul enemies, the very popular creatures from the Mega Man universe. As you're moving through, you have to wait a few seconds, of course, for them to pop up and fire at you before you're able to get a shot at them. After sliding through here, watch out for the enemies as they spin on their gears. Fire at the gears usually first because the gear will keep spinning even if you take out the guy riding it. After a few more of those enemies, you'll end up running into the boss door and it's time for the first master fight of the game. For the most part, Metal Man acts and fights the same way he did in the original Mega Man 2. However, he ends up moving a little bit slower, I think, and can only fire out 2 of the metal blades at once. So it's actually extremely easy to dodge each of the metal blades and keep firing at him as you jump along the conveyor belt. If you get too close to him though, he will bounce across to the opposite side, so it's really best to stay a little bit far on the left side so that you can keep firing at him and he'll never actually move. Once you take him out, we get his ability and we can move on to the next robot master. By defeating Metal Man, we not only get his metal blade, but we also get the Rush Marine, which allows us to travel underwater in a submarine-like ability. Since we have Metal Man's ability, we might as well go take out the next boss, which happens to be weak to him, which is Woodman. The Metal Blade is one of the most effective weapons not only in this game, but of course in the original Mega Man 2, and can be used greatly to take out most normal enemies, much faster and easier than even Mega Man's Mega Buster. These Panthers make a return, so be careful jumping over their fire arc, and keep firing the Metal Blade or your Mega Buster at them to take them out easily. For the most part, you should be able to just use the Metal Blade throughout most of the level because you should be able to get a few of the item upgrades so that you can end up replenishing your Metal Blade if you need to. Once you get down to this section, use the Rush Marine and you'll be able to travel along the water without any of the enemies being able to hit you. Be careful of the bad enemies as you climb up to this ladder and then run through and fight the Matuls. Thankfully, they give you a nice one of those big, large health replenishments in case you've taken a good amount of damage through the stage. Once we get back up here, use your metal blade and you'll have no trouble running through this area, taking out the rooster running enemies. After one more of the rabbit enemies, you'll then run up to the door to fight Woodman. Just like Metal Man, you'll pretty much be fighting Woodman the same way as you always have. He starts off by having his leaf shield rotate around him and then he'll fire it at you. Be sure to jump over it, in which case then 3 leaves will start falling down from the ceiling. Since there's a big gap between where these leaves come down, you can really have no problem standing in between them if you really want to dodge them. However, just standing next to Woodman, as long as you have a little over half health, just keep firing directly at him after he fires the leaf shield, and you can just keep hitting him over and over again and drain his health really fast. Even if he hits you a few times with his leaf ability, he really isn't going to do too much damage to you. Which ends up being probably one of the flaws of this game, is that it ends up being way too easy. After gaining the ability of the leaf shield, we move on to Airman's level. At the end of the first platform, you'll then have to do a series of jumps over these large head platforms that have the drills coming out of the left and right sides. While you can wait for them to retract and then jump, you can actually run through them with minimal damage, so you actually can save a lot of time by just running through and taking the little bits of damage that you would take. For those ground-type enemies that you won't be able to normally shoot with the Mega Buster, you can grab out the Leaf Shield and use that to just rotate a few times around them and end up killing them that way. Be careful while on these platforms that these big wind-shooting robots don't end up knocking you backwards off one of these platforms and into a gap. When we get here, use your Mega Buster or Leaf Shield or whatever to take out the guys riding on the clouds. You'll have to defeat them before you can jump to their cloud platform and continue moving through. Just be careful of the clouds that are in the actual level, that they don't end up blocking your view and you end up mistiming a jump. Travel down here and just stay on the left side and you'll be able to get to the next platform until you get here, in which case you'll have to travel through to the right, and after just one more of those enemies that are stuck to the ground, you'll end up reaching the boss door. While Airman is usually weak to Leaf Shield, you can just use the Mega Buster like you've been doing on the other Robot Masters to easily take him out. In fact, you don't even really have to dodge the tornadoes that Airman shoots out, because you should have no problem being able to fire directly at him. After his third set of tornadoes though, you will have to either dodge or try to jump over him, as he'll move from the right side of the screen to the left. Just continue either trying to dodge the tornadoes, or just let him hit you for the minimal damage and fire at Airman till he's done. We now have only one Robot Master left from the set of 4 from Mega Man 2, and it's Clashman. Or Crashman, as you may remember him from Mega Man 2. In this version of the game, though, he's known as Flashman. You can take out this enemy by firing at the face, or you can just slide through him. On the next screen, if you're quick enough, you can jump to the moving platform and then immediately up to the ladder without having to wait for the platform to come back around. By timing your jumps, you can take a few seconds off your time overall in the game by jumping at the best opportunity to hit the bottom of the ladder and climb up. When up here, we have another one of those giant barrel enemies, so either slide through him again, or if you want to, you can fire at the face, but he'll break apart, reform, and you have to fire at him again. Just like Mega Man 2 on NES, this game does feature energy tanks if you need them, and you can find them scattered around a couple of the stages in the game. Here I decided to use Airman's ability for the first time, being able to take out some enemies that are just above me without me having to actually jump up and attack them, since the tornadoes travel towards the ceiling once you fire them out. When you reach here, you'll have a choice of multiple different ladders to climb up. The first two ladders, it doesn't matter which one you choose to go up. However, on the second set, which there's 3 of, the far right one will get you an energy tank, the middle one a large piece of health, and then the third one is the one you need to go up to in order to continue the level. Once you reach the top of the ladder though, it's time for our battle against Clashman. Clashman works pretty much the way he did in Mega Man 2, meaning that every time you jump for the most part, will actually force him to jump as well. And you can use this to time your jumps correctly in his, so that you can end up hitting him each and every time you jump up as well as every time he comes down, since he jumps so high up into the air. Try to do your best to avoid the bombs that he does shoot out as they hit the ground and then explode, in which case they can hit a decent radius around them. Once he's done though, we've defeated all 4 of the Mega Man 2 Robot Masters and it's time to move on to Wily's Castle. As Mega Man enters into Wily's castle, we start off with a little cutscene as we see Mega Man travel over to the left and fall down. He then runs into Dr. Wily. Wily tricks Mega Man and causes him to fall down into a room with 4 capsules. These rooms actually contain 4 different stages and 4 different Robot Masters to fight. Just so happens to be that these Robot Masters are actually from Mega Man 3. And we start off by choosing the bottom right capsule, which leads us to Needle Man's stage. You'll have to wait for these cannon enemies to open up before you can actually attack them. Using a Clashman bomb will instantly defeat them, and it has a good chance of hitting them if you fire one at them, and by the time they open up, the spark going around the bomb will still end up hitting them. Here you'll have to take the bottom path and easily slide through, just so you can really avoid the needle type enemies that will end up prodding you on the top area. Here you have a choice of going down the left side through some platforms or just taking the ladder straight down. If you decide to go to the left area, you can net yourself an extra life. Be careful when you get down here that you move quickly every time the needles retract, but you don't move so fast that you end up running into the next needle. When we get up here, watch out for the giant robot and do a good slide right underneath him when he jumps up so that you can get to the boss door without him hitting you. Once you enter the chamber, it's time to battle Needle Man. Needle Man has a few forms of attack. He'll either jump straight up in the air and fire some needles directly at you, which can be a little bit tricky to dodge because he actually can get more than 2 or 3 of them out at once. Or, he'll jump around the room trying to land near you and use the head projectile that he has to try to come out and stab you. One weird thing though is sometimes you actually can get him stuck in a corner and he'll just jump over and over again, and you can keep firing shots at his back and do a lot of damage to him. Once he's done, you end up getting his ability and we can move on to the next chamber. After we get the needle cannon, we have a password selection screen, and then we can choose the next chamber. Going to the bottom left chamber will lead us into Magnet Man's level. Be careful when moving through the beginning part because you'll have these magnet enemies to try to pull you up. You can actually use them to your advantage to have an easier time making it over certain pit jumps. Traveling down here, you can take out the top enemy and slide underneath if you want to net yourself an energy tank. While Needle Man's ability may not be as good as a lot of the other abilities that we got, it still works as an effective projectile weapon and can actually take out a few enemies, especially during this level. I figured I'm going to be showing all the weapons anyway, I might as well use Needleman's for a little while. In the next area, we have disappearing and reappearing platforms. While for the most times these are pretty annoying, we can actually use the Rush Jet to get us a little shortcut over to the left side for the ladder. Then, when we climb down the ladder, we can use the Rush Jet again and fly towards the top of the screen, and then we can just get ourselves easily over all the disappearing and reappearing platforms with little to no trouble. Be careful in the next room that you don't end up falling down off these platforms and hit the spikes. When you reach the top, you'll have one of those giant spring enemies. Take him out and enter the boss chamber for our next boss battle. Magnet Man likes to jump around a lot, and he has a great projectile that will fire straight out and then fall down near you wherever you're standing. However, if you stand directly below Magnet Man, all 3 of the magnets that he fires at will go actually straight into the opposite wall. They'll never come down at you and you won't be able to get hit by them. So, once you get this little pattern down, you should have no problem doing damage to the Magnet Man, and you'll be able to dodge all his projectiles without ever taking damage. Now that we've got ourselves the magnet missile, we go into the upper left chamber to enter Hardman's stage. Watch out for the giant bee enemies, and when they drop their hive, try to get out of the way because they will end up breaking apart into 5 little bee robots. On these types of platforms, just do a quick slide underneath of it and you'll be able to avoid the gator-like enemy that pops out from below. In the next room, the Magnet Man ability will be great to use on these monkey enemies. They jump up and attach themselves to the ceiling, and you won't be able to hit them till they come back down. However, with the magnet missile, they go directly towards them and hit them a few times to take them out. Unfortunately, though, the magnet missile runs out very quickly, so you won't be able to use it for too long. Out here, once again, use a quick slide ability so you can avoid getting crunched by the gators, and then enter into the next room for the boss chamber. Hardman is quite a large robot, and unfortunately he uses that to his advantage. He fires out his 2 fists towards you, which can be a little tricky to dodge, and then he crashes towards the ground every time he jumps. This causes the whole screen to shake, in which case you won't be able to move and do anything to him until it stops shaking. However, you get a nice pause in between when you can fire again and when he actually tries to attack you. So he ends up being another pushover boss that you can easily just keep firing your projectile at him and take him out rather quickly. We have only one more chamber to enter for the Mega Man 3 Robot Masters in this game, and it so happens to be the most diabolical of all Mega Man 3's Robot Masters, Topman. When you make it to the underwater area, once again the Rush Marine will greatly come in handy and allow you to bypass all the disappearing and reappearing platforms. If you need to and you're low on health, you can jump over to the left side and grab yourself a large chunk of health on the left side underneath the platform. When you reach down here, you'll have to battle with the giant cat robot. Use Hardman's fist ability and you can punch the cat directly in the face, and after only 4 or 5 of the hits, you'll take him down. The hard knuckle from Hardman works really well against the enemies here and takes out most of them with a single fist. Down here we have another easily accessible E-tank if you would like to grab it, as we're getting ready to go into the final stages of the game. Be careful and slide under here and try to get through quickly and in between each of the times he throws down one of these tops so that you can get up without taking any hits from him. Then jump across the large spinning platforms and make your way over to the far right. After one more of those top throwing enemies, you enter the boss chamber. While Topman's ability may be pretty deadly to contend with once you actually have it, fighting him during this battle ends up being extremely easy, just like the other robot masters. He throws out 3 tops that go towards the top of the screen, in which case they then slowly travel towards you. With your newfound sliding ability, you'll be able to really slide underneath all these tops every time, and dodge them for the most part. Just keep firing your projectile and Topman will go down pretty fast. With all the Mega Man 3 Robot Masters done, we now actually travel to a new area where we're gonna have to battle Quint, a friendly robot from the future that's been manipulated by Dr. Wily. Quint's unique ability is he actually has a jackhammer-like pogo stick that he bounces around on. While this may be a new fight, this ends up being one of the easiest boss battles ever. He bounces around the room, in which case you can easily slide underneath of him to dodge him, and every time he lands, some rocks come out of the ground and try to hit you. The thing is, the rocks bounce only right next to him, so unless you're standing directly on top of Quint, these rocks can never hit you, and it ends up being extremely easy. Once you defeat Quint, you get his jackhammer-like ability that we'll actually be using against the final boss of the game. We now leave Dr. Wily's castle and head to Dr. Wily's space station, which you can see has a very clock-like feel. This is the station that he's using to travel back in time or into the future to mess the world up and try to take it over. Be careful when you fall down the first platform because you'll have to hug the right wall so that you can land on the platform and not accidentally land in the spikes. During this section, you'll travel down the far left wall first. You'll then have to travel up a large series of ladders in order to make it up the center of the room before finally making it over to the right and falling down that side. In the next area, you'll come to a large amount of water again. Just like we've done before, we're going to be using that Rush Marine to help us get through. Just make sure that you fire a few times because there is a couple of enemies that will try to get in your way during this. After we face off with the large robot, we move up this ladder, and we can use the Rust Jet in order to get ourselves over so we can make it to the ladder on the right side. Be careful when you get up here, you'll have to wait for the large spikes to come down and then retract so you can make it over the little gaps. Of course, you want to be absolutely sure you don't end up touching those spikes because they will end up killing you. Here you can either use the Cloud ability from the guy that you can fight, or you can actually use the Rust Jet to get yourself up to the next ladder easily. Once up here, you can use Woodman's ability to take out the guys before entering the boss chamber for the final fight against Dr. Wily. The boss fight against Dr. Wily starts off with him inside of this large plane that jumps from the right side to the left side. Use your Mega Buster to fire directly at him and try to hit him in the head so you actually can do damage. If you get the opportunity, you can use the ability we got from Quint and jump on top of that, in which case you can then use that in order to bounce directly on top of Dr. Wily to do a ton of damage to him. Once he gets over halfway, he then transforms and starts flying around the room. He then will go over to the other side of the room and get in a new contraption. Just like the first battle, you're going to be trying to fire directly at Dr. Wily so you can actually hurt him, and at the same time try to do your best to dodge the projectiles that he shoots out. If you get an opportunity, use Quint's ability once again and you can bounce on top of him to do some good damage that way. After you bring him down about halfway again, he'll break apart and travels to another machine. Now this is the final battle against Dr. Wily. Once again, you'll have to hit directly on the skull this time instead of firing at him. You really won't be able to use Quint's ability because it's almost impossible to hit him directly. However, if you want to try to pull it out, you can. Do your best to dodge the missiles as well as the other projectile-type enemies that he fires out into the arcing pattern overhead. Just stand in between two of them and you can be able to dodge him, and when he gets low on health, you can use Quint's ability to finish him off if you like and enjoy the ending, the Mega Man 2 for the Game Boy. Instead of having to sit through a credit screen, we actually get an enemy roll call, as well as a roll call for the boss masters that we battle throughout the game. While Mega Man 2 for the Game Boy is a rather shallow experience, the bosses ended up being extremely easy, and most of the level designs were taken directly from their counterpart of Mega Man 2 or Mega Man 3, depending upon the Robot Master. Even adding that new enemy in Quint from the future, he ends up being such an easy boss battle overall, it ends up being even more of a disappointment to this game. While it's not a bad game by any means, and it works well, it ends up just being, well, rather dull and really easy to get through. And as we get our Presented by Capcom screen with Mega Man staring up into the stars. That's gonna wrap up this edition of Play It Through. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoyed.